afternoon, you guys. My name is Danielle Partin.
I'm Kaylee, Showler.
I'm Justin Ruffing.
And we did our project on mourning dove wing ID and biology. And the scientific name is Neda macrura.
And our goal is to teach and educate others the basic biology and habitat of the mourning dove, along with learning how to identify their age by their wings and their feathers. Before we learn how to do this, we need to learn a little bit more about the mourning dove, so they're going to tell you the biology and habitat and some other good stuff.
Ready?
Like I said earlier, my name is Justin, and I worked on the biology and nesting portion of the project. Before I get into like their migration patterns and all that, we're just gonna take a moment to mention some of the key features that help in identifying from a distance, such as the long, thin bill, perfect for their seed-based diet. Their relatively small head for their plump body. And I know it's kind of hard to see on this picture, but most mourning doves will have a small comma-shaped dot right below the eye. That's a great way to identify them, along with their dark spots along their feathers. And something unique to the North American species is the long pointed tail with the white border. And also another key identifying feature is the reddish legs for the adults. That's a great way to figure out what you're looking at. Alright, next we're gonna, alright. But yeah, they're sleek, medium-sized, streamlined birds. They average in length and height about 11 to 13 inches. And their wingspan is about 17 to 19 inches. And they weigh just over 4 ounces. Yeah, their estimated fall population is about 500 million. And it ranges from Alaska to most of South America. Both male and female are similar in appearance, as I showed earlier in the previous picture. They have a dark, sort of overcoating, yeah, especially dark on their wings, and they have sort of a buff color, like lighter color undercarriage. And as I said earlier, they got the black spots. It's very easy to identify. And the outer edges of their tail feathers are white tipped. Juveniles will have buff colored tips on their primary feathers, so giving them a sort of a scaly appearance. And it'll stay like that until the first molt. After about 3 months of age, juveniles are very hard to identify from adults. It's actually you gotta really know what you're looking for to figure that out. And they do attempt to at least get 2 to 5 nestings in, so they can have fledglings as late as early September. And they actually have the longest breeding period of any North American bird. Next slide, please. Thank you. Before I talk about nesting, I'm just going to touch on their mating practices. Typically the male, when he's on the hunt for a mate, he'll circle a certain area where he knows females are going, hey, this is my area, y'all don't come in here. And, well, typically this doesn't work, so he actually has to fight off other rivals. But once he accomplishes that, he'll strut up to any potential females and puff himself up, looking very much like a big feathery balloon, and say, hey, come get me. But if the female reciprocates, they'll both go off in search of a nesting area. So poor female actually has to both locate a proper nesting site and build it, with the male simply providing the materials. Isn't that just like it? But yeah, they typically build it in shrubs, conifers, and deciduous trees. The kind of trees you find along the woodland edges. They don't really like to go into like the denser woodlands because it's farther away from their food source, which is seeds. But if they can't find woodland, woodland edges, they'll nest along the ground or in small bushes. Or if they can find like previous nests, they love those. And I think a few have even been recorded to nest in chimneys and abandoned barns. But as I said earlier, their diet is 99% seed-based, with small insects and occasionally snails thrown in. Their favorite seeds are I want to say they're processed grains. Sorry, I'm having a
Corn and sunflower seeds.
thing. That's
Millet
it.
and
The
canola
words
seeds.
escape me.
That's okay.
But yeah, no, that's pretty much all that I have to say about them. So I'm gonna turn it over to Miss Danielle. She's gonna teach y'all some more about it.
So, one of my portions is the mourning dove cooes. The mourning dove has a mournful, soft, slow cooing sound. That's kind of how they get their name, the mourning dove, because it kind of sounds like they're mourning. Most of them are unmated, so when you hear this, it's more of an unmated male dove. And usually their coo-oos are followed by 2 or 3 louder coos as well. Okay, so do you want to do it? So my big portion of it is molting feathers. And your molten feathers are pretty much dead, kind of like your fingernails or your hair. And it's kind of made of the same protein, the keratin protein. So if you look on this, if you look on the back of it, that is papilla. That's what this is right here. And I have another slide that will show you. But that is what protects and helps it form as it's growing. Because whenever it gets damaged, it has to create a whole new one because it can't fix itself. Also, whenever they are going through their molting period, which is what this is, it takes a lot of energy, so they try not to do it during important times like whenever they're nesting or during migrations, because it takes a lot of energy. So what I just showed you, this is the papilla. So this is whenever it starts out. So the first stage is each feather grows from a small outgrowth of skin called papillas. The next stage is whenever it's coming out, and kind of like your hair, it's newer by the bottom. By the third stage, as the feather structure develops, as proteins are laid down, the surface of the bump skin, it's here that the branching patterns form. So at this part, so the very top of the feather, when you see the hairs, that's what's forming when it breaks through. By this stage, which is stage 4, as the feathers grow, it stays curled in the tubular shape around the papilla until it is pushed away from the growth area. And then by the 5th stage, the protective sheath maintains the feather's cylindrical shape until it starts to disintegrate near the tip, allowing the mature part of the feather to unfurl, which is pretty much what I just showed you, the feather, the little piece that had the papilla on it, how a lot of it was coming out. That was at the 5th stage right here. By the time you get to the 6th stage, the sheath will fall off and the growth process is complete. The Journal of Wildlife Management, they did a research study, and from 1953 to 1965, it showed that less than 2.5% of adult doves completed their molt before October 1st. Adult doves of both sexes began molting their primary feathers during early June in Missouri and lost the last 10th primary during the later half of October. Approximately 140 to 150 days were required to complete the molt. Thus, early hatched immatures, which began their primary molt 25 to 30 days after hatching. Yeah.
Okay. All right, before we learn how to age these bird wings, we need to learn the names of the feathers that we're going to be identifying. These feathers right here at the top are the primary feathers. There's a picture right there that shows it. And then these smaller feathers behind it are called the secondaries. And then all of these are coverts. These are primary coverts, greater, middle, and lesser coverts. We'll be looking at those to see if they have white buffy tips on them. The white buffy tips indicate that it is a juvenile bird. Okay, we're going to age this bird. I'm going to help you guys. So the first step in aging a bird is you have to find their molting feather, which is the newest growth, shortest, the shiniest, this one right here. And you always start at the top, and you start with 10 on the board right there. 10, 9, 8, 7, you go down, and you count. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. This bird is in molt 3. Go to the next slide. Okay. From molt 0 to 7, if a bird has buffy tips and has a molt 0 to 7, it is a juvenile. So this bird is a juvenile bird. You see the white buffy tips on it? Okay, I'm going to age another one. This one. Let's find the molt wing right there. 10, 9, 8, 7. This bird is a molt 7. And from molt 0 to 7 with no buffy tips indicates an after hatch year bird or an adult. And when aging a dove, there are a lot of unknown. There's just as many unknown as there are hatch year or after hatch year. And so whenever we're aging, there's no guessing. We can't just guess. If you can't determine the age for 100%, you have to mark it unknown. And so let's try to find the molt feather. There's no molt feather, so we can't find that. There's discoloration right here. There's buffy tips up here, and there's no buffy tips down here. So we can't determine the age of this bird, and so we have to mark it as unknown. There's only 3 identifying ages. There's hatch year, after hatch year, and unknown. And so what I'm going to have you guys do is try to read the chart. There's specific rules. If you start at the top, A through D are pretty easy, and if you get confused and can't figure out how to identify them, there's special rules for each molt right here, and try to read it, and if you can't figure it out, just ask questions. And so you guys can come and try to identify it. Do you have any questions before y'all start this?
Also, you can take them off as well.
Yeah, you can take them off, and whenever, and you flip it up, and the answer's underneath it. Do y'all have any questions about it? Yes, ma'am.
Would you need an interpreter every time? It's a great lesson. I didn't know anything about this, so this is very learning experience for me. But would you have to have an interpreter every time, or
no? You would not. Visitors can walk up, look at this, look at the chart, and then below it is the dove ages, the 3 ages that we use to, well, after hatch year, and unknown, the ages that we use to identify, and then the special rules are right here, and then the answers are under there. And so any questions that you do have, the rules will explain for there's specific, like for instance, there's in molting 6, if only a few of the primary coverts are white, it's still a hatch year because the other feathers have already been replaced because it's almost an after hatch year bird. And so the instructions are all right here, and so anybody should be able to come up, read it. Now some of them, like I said, they get a little bit harder as you go down for the specific rules, and so you might have to refer to the chart, but you should be able to figure it out.
Also, there's a lot of information in the biology as well.
So if you guys want to come up and try to do it.
And like she said, if y'all have any questions about any section of our presentation, just ask us and we should be able to help you.
I just went ahead and took this one off. If you can try to flip it out.
Well, I bent it back. You're good.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I bent it up. You're good.
Sorry.
Grab one and try it. And the rules, the ages are right here and the rules are right there.